Thank you. To the district clerk. Public comment is limited to 15 minutes total, with each speaker allowed up to 3 minutes. This meeting is held in public rather than a public meeting, and we will not engage in dialogue tonight, but we are listening. The meeting is being live streamed, and the recording will be posted online. Today, the Pledge of Allegiance is going to be done by Alma Primary. Liam will recite the pledge.
All right, guys. Get real close. And start whenever you want.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Come up here for a picture. This is what the parents only come here for. Then you can drive them. That would be under his, where is it? Yeah. His, where is it? Response to last month's public comments. Thank you, guys. Now we'll move on to the student report from the middle school, being done by 8th grader Nolan and 6th grader Candence. We'll give the report.
We also have an addition of James, so if you three want to come up here. They're going to talk in different orders, so keep your eye on them. It's a magic show. All right, Nolan, you're first, buddy.
Testing.
Here, I'll raise it up for you.
Thank you.
How's that? Very good.
Our drama club production this year is Alice in Wonderland. We'll perform on January 30th at 7 p.m. and January 31st at 2 and 7 p.m. More than 70 students are involved. Tickets went on sale tonight at 6:30. I enjoy drama club because it is a welcoming group of people with great opportunities. Every day during the 15 days before break, Student Support hosted a 15 Days of Kindness challenge to bring in the Christmas spirit. Every day there is a new theme of kindness, such as giving a compliment or holding the door open for somebody. This helped make Iroquois Middle a brighter place during the holidays. I participate in 2 accelerated classes, algebra and biology. These classes are an engaging challenge to earn high school credit. Accelerated students must take a Regents exam at the end of the year like the high schoolers. Overall, 8th grade has been a great learning environment where people help each other and brighten up each other's days.
Like Nolan, I'm also involved in drama club. We've been preparing for this production for several months, practicing lines, learning choreography, and working together as a team. I enjoy being in drama club because it helps me build confidence, make new friends, and express myself in a creative way. Being a part of this musical has taught me responsibility, teamwork, and I am proud of what we've accomplished together. I'd like to share a few exciting things happening in 6th grade. Congratulations to Mr. Nowak's class for getting a shout-out on the student news show World from A to Z, which aired on Friday, December 19th. This program helps students learn about current events in a balanced and educating way, and it's a fan favorite for Mr. Nowak's students. In social studies, we've been learning about ancient India. We had to present what we learned 4 different times by creating a fun and interactive flipbook. Our topics included early civilization and geography, Hinduism, Buddhism, and India's inventions. We were given 20 different examples to show us a variety of ways to present our project, but we are not limited to these and could come up with our own ideas. I liked this project because it let us be creative while showing what we learned. This week, we are also celebrating Winter Spirit Week to break the winter blues. To end the week, we will participate in our second Connectivity Day. Students participate in fun, teacher-guided activities. If it's anything like the first one, it'll be a great day to connect and have fun together.
My name is James and I'm a 7th grader. We have spent the past 15 weeks working on our cardboard arcade projects. We began with brainstorming and planning to develop engineering designs complete with diagrams, labels, and material lists. Through collaboration and problem solving, teams then move into the construction phase, applying creativity and critical thinking to bring their ideas to life. Through the project, we build valuable skills such as teamwork, communication, perseverance, and design thinking, while also strengthening our understanding of engineering concepts and the design process. At the conclusion of the project, 7th grade teachers joined the students to vote on the top designers. The 6 winning projects will advance to the Key Bank Center on January 30th to compete against other schools across Western New York. In addition, II students will have the opportunity to participate in interactive gameplay on Friday.
And some of the cardboard arcade projects are in the back, so if you get a chance to take a look at those. We don't have the winners yet of the Key Bank presentations, but it'll be out very soon. So thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Now we're going to move on to board discussion and news we're sharing. The middle school principal, Mr. Esslinger, is going to give us a presentation on literacy, math, science, and building goals and data. Ross, you're up.
Does this go up? Is that going to be too high for you? Okay. All right, hopefully everybody can hear me. Yes, Renee will be joining me. She'll be taking on part of the presentation. Renee Reedhart, for those of you that are, she's new to us in the middle school this year. We're very excited to have her. She's doing a wonderful job, and she's a wonderful asset to be in for all of our students. So thank you, Renee. First, thank you, board. Thank you for having us this evening. Renee and I are very excited to be able to share this information with all of you. We always look at student success in multiple ways. We start in the classroom with formative and summative assessments. For the students, we communicate with parents through progress reports, through report cards. You're not going to be seeing any of that data today, but what we are going to be talking about is some of the other assessments that we provide to all of our students. The first one being AIMSweb. We do that multiple times a year, as well as we're going to be sharing some of our state assessment data that the students take in late April. Starting with literacy. Let's make sure it is on. Okay, there we go. Starting with literacy, I'm going to be sharing information about AIMSweb, and when I'm talking about AIMSweb, I know you've heard some of this through the other presentations from the other buildings, but I'll just review quickly with the literacy and AIMSweb. We look at oral reading fluency. So you'll hear a lot about oral reading fluency today, and then Renee will get into the math. But I will be starting with the oral reading fluency. With AIMSweb, there's 2 areas that we look at. The first one is accuracy, and the other one is the actual oral reading fluency score. So when you look at these, our accuracy numbers are at 96%. So, 96% of our students are reading at 98% or above, which is always a great thing to see. We are on the increase. If students are accurate readers, that's going to help with the oral reading fluency, as well as comprehension and the different skills that the students need within the classroom. 69% of our students are reading above the 35th percentile, and I'll share a little bit more about that, and you'll hear more about our goals with oral reading fluency in just a minute. So that is at the 6th grade level. As we move to the 7th grade level, 89% of our students are reading above the 98th percentile, with 67% reading above the 35th percentile. So we're improving in that area of accuracy, as well as improvement in ORth. And again, when we're looking at these numbers, these include all of our students in the general education as well as special education students. Moving on to 8th grade AIMSweb, looking at accuracy. We're at 87% students are reading 98% accuracy or above, which is great. And, 58% of our students are reading at the 35th percentile. And when we're looking at Ames Web, and when we look at one of the important things to point out is any student that is reading below the 35th percentile are either receiving what we call response to intervention. So those students, we have, after every benchmark that we do with oral reading fluency, we sit down as a group with teachers and our RTI team, and we break down that data. So those students, are either strategically monitored, that's a very small portion, but any of those students below the 35th percentile, the remaining students are receiving an intervention. And if they're receiving an intervention, that intervention is being progressed, so their progress is being monitored through multiple data points. After roughly 8 data points, we meet again as a team and we sit down and say, is that intervention working? We check out those data points, we have those conversations, so we make sure if any students that are part of an intervention, we are tracking their progress. So I'll talk a little bit more at the end. We talk about our goals with oral reading fluency as well towards the end of our presentation.
Quickly, pulling up grade 7 out for a second. If you look at grade 6 and grade 8, it looks like the accuracy is improving and getting better, but the general trend with the oral reading fluency doesn't seem to be as well in 6 and 8. It's like in other words, the green line's going down, the red line is going up.
So that would be a decrease in oral reading fluency.
What would you think it would account for that, or?
That's a great question. This is not the same group of students as, the same group that goes from year to year. So, 6th and 8th grade, especially for 8th grade, we went down to 58% oral reading fluency. Is that what you're asking? 8th grade is one of the things that we talk about when we look at the oral reading fluency scores is not just having, this is not just ELA teachers being able to provide this, because one of the things that I'll talk about as we get into the state assessment is oral reading fluency. Many of these assessments they're saying is a reading assessment. There's much more reading. So what contributes to that? Go ahead. Oh, sure.
Otherwise I'll get yelled at. So a couple things. In order to have oral reading fluency, first and foremost, the accuracy, our goal is to get that accuracy up to 98, 99%, because what it does is it allows the students to not spend all of their brain power on trying to figure out what the words are, okay? So the accuracy is the most important initially. What is happening with the oral reading fluency is twofold. Number one, the vocabulary being used at the upper level is more difficult. And also, what we're finding is that we need to increase the practice of students reading. Now, that doesn't mean take the book and go in a corner and read. What it means is being very strategic and specific and having the teacher do choral reads, partner reads, where kids are practicing and we can hear them and help, and they need to be able to hear us read so that they know what speed would be a good speed so that they can still comprehend what they're reading. Back in the day when I was a kid, they used to have those things that would test your speed reading. I could do it, but I didn't know what I read. What we're trying to do is increase their speed of reading, but also at the same time increase comprehension. At the 6th grade level, if you could go back 2 slides, what's important to see is this huge jump in the accuracy. And just so, this would be our first group whose teachers at grades 4 and 5 had all of the training in the previous years. And so that's why I'm really excited about this 6th grade, and this is the grade that we really want to start watching as far as how do they do in 7th and 8th grade, because that's where all of the training has happened, and we had these kids were the first year in our new reading program. So this would be, I'm not diminishing the importance of 7th and 8th grade, but this is really the test of whether or not what we've done is going to make an impact.
So would it be accurate or correct to say that it's expected that oral reading fluency would lag?
Yes,
Okay.
it definitely would be. Sorry, I was too verbose.
No, you answer the question.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
So I was just looking at comparing, visually 6, 7, and 8. It looks like you're coming in at a higher percentile and it's decreasing over time. Can you explain why? Right, so you're looking at your oral reading fluency, your above 35th percentile goes down, and below 35th percentile goes up, and then you go to 7th, and the same thing, it's closing that gap year over year. Can you, identify contributing factors that would result in that? Because it seems like the good is getting worse, and the worse are getting more. So that's how I'm reading it, and that's what the graph says, so.
Yeah, and it's really going, sorry. Truly, it's really going back to getting back into practice, concentrating on vocabulary, giving our students practice in reading with their teachers, working along that line. Additionally, the material is getting more difficult. So it's like training for a marathon. You hit a peak and you might have a learning curve and you hit a peak. And the other thing is Ross did point out that these are not the same cohort kids. So it could be a measure within that as well.
Anything else before I go on to state assessments? Okay. Let's see, so it was 7th, 8th, and, okay, moving into, let me get on the right page here. Moving into our state assessment, three things that we're gonna look at: proficiency, the percentage of students that are proficient, percentage of students that are not proficient, and then the percentage of students that are opting out. What you will see from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, one of the goals that you'll hear me talk about later in the presentation is obviously increasing the number of students that are taking the assessment. We have made some strides. Years ago, we were at, let's say 3 years ago, we were at 50% of our students were opting out of the New York State 6th grade assessment. This past year, we were at 33%. Are we satisfied with that? No, we would like all of the students to take it, but that is one of the areas that we're going to look at, and I'm going to continue to to set goals on, and I'll explain that. And our proficiency is slowly increasing, and I'll talk when I get to the end of the assessment what we do with this assessment. So again, slowly improving with our proficiency is increasing. Our opt-outs, not where we want them, but we are having more students that are taking part in that state assessment. For 7th grade, again, we have a slight 60% of students did opt out in the spring. Again, we're moving in the right direction. 28%, only 28% of the students opted out in the spring of 2025. So we are making that move of having more students take that assessment. And again, proficiency obviously is something we're going to address. It's kind of leveled out there. And when we move to, whoops, I'm sorry, that was to the 8th grade slide must not have been in here because it goes right to math. I can talk about 8th grade. The 8th grade slide must not have come through. I've got it right here. So with 8th grade, we have our largest increase in opt-outs. 61% of the students in the spring of 2025 did not take that. So you can see that slow increase from the number of students that are opting out in 6th grade, increases in 7th, and our highest is 61%, and with 49% proficiency. One of the things that I think is important to point out is when we look at the New York State assessment, it's what we do with that information. Renee and I had the opportunity today to sit down for the day with all of our ELA teachers and some of our 6th grade reading teachers. And we pulled some different reports. We really looked at 3 different areas with those assessments and said, okay, what do we want to celebrate? What's working? What are we doing very well? Then we look at some of the areas that we may want to go back and dive a little bit deeper into. And when we pull what's called what is the name of the report? Yes, item analysis report. That looks at the standards, what standards were covered on that assessments, how many questions were asked in each standard, and then how our students did. And one of the areas that when we looked at it, we were celebrating. When you look at the multiple choice questions of the questions that were released by New York State, we outperformed the region in all but I think 2 questions at each grade level, with only being about a percentage with those questions below. So that's a success. That's also an area to be able to. What's nice is this year they allowed New York State allowed teachers to have their own accounts. So we spent some time, getting Mary Jo. Thank you for setting up all of those accounts for teachers, because it was a lot. But we work with Samantha Ping through BOCES that consults and works within our district to be able to get all the teachers signed in. They were able to pull all of these reports. So when we looked at the multiple choice answers, that was a celebration. And again, we're going to dive in and looking at a few of those questions. One of the areas that we were kind of average with compared to all of the schools in our region. In the region, Mary Jo, is all of the students in Erie 1 and all the schools in Erie 1 and Erie 2.
There's a couple ways of looking at it. If we go Winnie Rick, it's west of Rochester. It's west of Rochester, not including Rochester or Buffalo. But if there's another measure there that actually takes us from Syracuse west and includes them. So there's multiple ways of looking at it, and you can also look and compare versus proficiency and mastery.
Yeah. So when we compare to the region, one of the areas that we will look at, we did well, but there's a couple areas that we were just underneath. We were just below the regional scores, so we will be looking at those. But that's on the constructed response. So these exams are no longer just memorization to be able to answer questions. It is looking at, let's say for science cluster questions or for the ELA, reading passages and being able to comprehend those in short answer responses. So we were able to set some goals, and we did a lot of work, and we will continue that work throughout the school year. And then Renee is going to move on to our math.
Before you move on to math, the one thing that always interests with me, and I just want to understand, is like if you look, once again in here, you look at 6th grade, generically the lines are moving in a way you would want them to move. If you look at 7th grade, the lines are not necessarily moving in a way you'd like them to move. I mean, what accounts for the difference between the grades?
With the assessment?
Yes.
I mean, I think if you look at, for example, the accuracy in the last year for all 3 grade levels, we're going up.
Right, I was talking about the ELA.
Not like it's dramatic, but.
Yeah, I was talking about the ELA.
I think it's,
There's a big issue on opt-outs. Because we're talking a large percentage of our kids. Now, granted, it's smaller than it has been in the past, but we really need to, by New York State regs, have 95% of our students taking this assessment.
So the 7th grade, you're saying could be, or
It could be skewed
the
by
data's skewed
opt-outs.
because of opt-outs?
Yeah.
I would add a little different take on how I look at it. Mary Jo a little bit ago said, watch the 6th grade. These are the students that have had this additional training. The 7th and 8th graders haven't had that. That's why there's struggling going on there, period. We started to tear them. And that's why, maybe Ross will want to come back and talk about the RTI he's had in place, because that's how we're trying to take care of them. 7th and 8th grade are at a disadvantage compared to 6th graders, and that's showing up in the results. And that's why we made changes that the 6th graders were benefited from just because we implemented them compared to where they are moving through the system.
And if you remember from the previous presentations, 3rd grade is on the rise, 4th and 5th grade is on the rise. So there's a pattern beginning. Hopefully it will continue.
So like I'm trying to point out, so 6th grade is benefiting from the new literacy and the new reading program. Is that, or the changes?
Not really the new because this is the second year,
Yeah.
so sixth grade a little bit, but it was even the training leading up to that about teaching teachers and improving their skills. They're benefiting from us moving into the program, and we're going to benefit more being in the program.
And that's the sixth grade.
That's the
and the
sixth grade.
It's the sixth grade that probably would have the largest impact over the seventh and eighth grade. The upper level teachers did have some training, but it was not as intricate as the K through 5.
So then when, like, next year, when we look at this,
We
the seventh grade should show some.
be on the
okay.
rise.
Yes.
And we hope to have more students taking the exam as well. And that's why one of the important pieces is when we pulled, because it's the same thing when we started putting these slides together and looking at them, we're looking at our proficiency rates, is, I wanted to be able to dive in and look at, so how are we performing compared to the region on the different parts of the exam? So it kind of tells a different story than, unfortunately, because of our opt-out skews this,
So do the opt-outs, is the opt-outs part of the denominator then? And why couldn't you normalize that data to be able to understand?
So not in this data. There's another whole presentation on ESSA that I've done a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Where when New York State is required to report the data to the federal government. And what they need to do is report the data in two forms. Number one is the kids who took the assessment, and that's what those numbers represent. Number two is the opt-outs, and when they include the opt-outs, all of those kids that opted out are counted as zeros. And so we tend to get dinged on a federal report because of the zeros and the opt-outs. Now, normalizing the data, we would have to go back and find out where these students are, compare them to the Ames Web data, and have it wouldn't be pinpoint accuracy, we'd have an idea, but it would take some time.
I'm just trying to understand, if the opt-outs are part of the denominator, how do you actually make some changes? But you're saying it's not. In
It's
this
not.
graph.
It's just showing you the number. We wanted to include the opt-outs because we're really concerned. We've been concerned since 2015 on the high percentage of opt-outs. We need to get our students taking these assessments because although it's important for us to, it serves twofold. It helps us determine, along with the Ames Web, what our students need individually and as a group. But it also, this is an end-of-year assessment, just like a Regents exam. And that determines whether or not we're making the right choices on our curriculum and pedagogy. And that has a long-term effect for, cohorts to come. So that's why we would really benefit if we had more students taking this assessment. It is no longer used to grade teachers for APPR, and they have released most of the assessment. So we could really get a really great view like we did in the past, and when we had 95 or 100% of our kids taking it.
So, I'm just going to speak for my kids, and I don't know that it was clearly communicated to parents or students what the value is to take it. And so the problem that I see as a parent, not a board member, but as a parent, what's the value in taking it? You say there's a lot of value, but I don't know what decisions you can make with them opting in and the value of the students taking it and then getting some level of score that they're not happy with, as an example. So
Right.
My opinion would be is, as a parent, I don't see the value in it, and I don't know that you're making any different changes. So if that could be communicated, you may have more adoption. Your issue is adoption rate because nobody wants to take it. And I don't know what the value is for them to take it, other
Yeah.
than it'll get better.
Yeah, duly noted. And it's something that these guys will talk about in a minute. But just so that I have the opportunity to explain it, imagine that you have 100% of your 8th grade students sitting for this ELA exam and not 40%. You can now start, when they do an item analysis and they look at a constructed response, a long answer response, and 100% of our students are getting 4s on that, which out of a scale of 5, versus 40% of our kids getting 2s. We don't know the accuracy. When you have a larger, when you have a larger N size, you get more accurate data. And so then we can go back and look at our curriculum and see where the gaps and overlaps are.
I would say data accuracy, yes, in volume of data is true. Correct data is more important. And so I would challenge you on that statement. However, we can't go into a dissertation on how the mathematics is done in statistics. But I believe strongly as a parent, you can do something with the data that's there. So coming out saying we have kids that are opting out and that's the problem is not an answer. That to me is saying you haven't done the work you need to be able to eke out the value of the data you're getting.
Well, we still look at that data.
Yeah,
We still look at that data, but there's also a value of, these are the first exams that will lead to a Regents exam that will and we want exposure for our kids too, because you don't want the first exam to be a high-stakes exam.
Understood. I still think it goes back to value generation and communication.
That's it. So, to be clear on some of your points, saying there's an opt-out and that's why the problem has never washed with me, and they know it, and that's why you heard Ross say they took the results they had, did a night analysis on it to improve. So they are using the data they have to improve, working with a teacher, with how they present their lessons, and he'll be talking about that in a little bit, with the instruction. The second piece is, we have struggled exactly with that communication. So depending on the years we've sent out, when it started, there was a big thing where people were saying don't take it because of how it impacts the evaluation. When that changed, we put out that communication for a couple years. Didn't seem to help. Then we tried to do the value. That didn't help. The last thing I've told Ross is, well, maybe we don't tell anyone about the exams and just surprise them one day and maybe they'll all take the exam. Because, and that's not to say you're not right, it's just we keep trying different ways, and poor Ross and I have probably 3 conversations a year and he tells me what he plans. I challenge him on that idea. We try something, he tries something, and you can see it in 7th grade. Over the years, it seemed to have worked a little bit. In other ones, I gotta be honest with you, it didn't work. It went the other way, and it's the same message that went out. So again, our results are saying, well, for parents in this grade, it worked, and parents in this grade, it didn't.
Yes, we've explained to parents, like, here's, send home letters, and we've done presentation at MSA meetings, we've talked about it at open house of, here's the data that we have, even though, yes, we don't have all of our students take it, this is what we do it. We do an item analysis, and we pull that data, so we look at every release question. We can pull, the teachers can pull up their class list, we pull up the grade level, we can look at all of those questions, we can look at individual students, if we want to go that deep, and so we do all of that, as Mary Jo said, and I'll talk about this more in the end, I'm kind of getting ahead of it, but we use all of that information when we're looking at, and I'll talk about kind of where the direction we're going with professional development in the district and in the middle school. That's starting with standards, which will align this. But I'll share what we're adding this year to, for the parents. We're going to do a voiceover with PowerPoint, and so they can click on it and they can watch a video as well as the letter that's home to parents, as well as the presentations. We've done a lot, and we do very well up to about a week and a half before the test. And then, then we get, a week before the test, we get a lot of opt-outs, so.
And then I'm calling them.
We still have a plan, and we're still gonna move forward with that.
But we use the data we have to improve instruction. And that data
And I'll talk about
needs
that
to,
in our
and that needs to improve. Not that not everyone's working hard on it, it's just as whatever's coming through, whatever skills they had coming into it need to be improved, which is why, you've been here through the whole process over the past few years of why we're changing literacy. We've got into the reading rope and everything else.
And just really quick, because, Keith started with it, and I agree with him a little, my thunder, but I think if you want the students and the parents, to participate in the test, you need to build, value into it, and you need to explain it. And I don't think emails and letters do it. I think it would have to be almost the type of thing where you got creative and you almost had like a movie night in the middle school auditorium, and you invite the parents and the kids to come in, and you take 15 minutes before that and you explain to why it's important. If you go to any student, well, not any student, most of them say, hey, do you want to take a test? Why would you want to do that? And if you say, well, if you take it, it helps us with data. It doesn't build any value. But when the high school does their college, the finance, talk about the FAFSA and all that, that room is almost full because the parents, they recognize the value. Immediately they come, they listen because they want to know how to do that, the FAFSA, how to apply for, college aid. I just think the message has to get out there somehow so they understand it's the value. And we're not just testing them because, to make their life miserable. And same thing with the parents. This is the value in it. And I don't think emails and letters, because if you think about the time we get home between letters, emails, there's so much. I think you got to get a little bit, I hate the term outside the box, but I don't care if it's like a movie night with pizza and you take 15 minutes and you just, hey, we're not looking to test you, to grade you in a bad way. We're looking to improve ourselves, and this is what it does for you. And I think it takes that message away. I don't think you're going to do with emails and that sort of thing.
We've tried bringing parents in for presentations, and depending on nights, we'll have a handful of parents show up. But I do like your idea, tying it to we could tie it maybe to something with the MSA of what we're doing movie nights for students, so we can.
Or something fun. I mean, the high school for the seniors always had a tough time with the after prom party, but then they switched to doing like bounce houses and ice cream over on the field. And you can ask, I know Bob's been there and Doug's been there, you get 85% of the senior class shows up to do that because there is value and there's fun in it. I think you can do the same thing and get your message to the parents and the students.
Sure. No, that's great. We can try it. Yeah, I'll be in the dunk tank again.
Just to make sure everyone heard, he wants to put him in the dunk tank.
So Renee, we'll move on to our math assessments.
All right, so for math, it's very similar to literacy. So we gather our data from a variety of platforms. Again, we're just going to be talking about Ames Web, New York State assessments, and also we'll be discussing the Regents exams in this session. So first, we're going to look at Ames Web. They cover a lot of the math skills and concepts. And just like a little background about math, it's very similar to reading. Math's a language. It's built upon the ability to recall basic math operations quickly and accurately, the same way as reading, to gain fluency through things like math facts. From there, we're able to make mathematical decisions and understand why particular operations were used, and then how do we kind of incorporate that into our everyday lives. So again, when we look at this data, we want to keep in mind the 35th percentile. Students scoring above the 35th percentile are considered on track for grade level, and like Ross mentioned, any students scoring below the 35th percentile has interventions in the form of RTIs. In sixth grade, 85% of our students scored above the 35th percentile, which has remained fairly consistent. This tells us that we met the target. However, we do have work to do in choosing more evidence-based strategies to increase our target. We want our target to be 100%, regardless of whether we think that's achievable or not. It is. All means all, and so we're going to do everything in our power to give kids the best shot of reaching that 100%. For seventh grade, we have 91% of our students who are above the 35th percentile. What this tells us is that they're gaining depth of skills and knowledge due to the practice. So they have another year of practice. They have another year of math computations, of reading, concepts and applications. It's hard to pinpoint if it's just one area with this data, but we could definitely dig deeper. But is it repetition? Is it educational choices that the teachers are making? We also are doing a lot of work with Hattie, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end, when we're looking at evidence-based strategies. And in eighth grade, we're at 85% of our students scoring above the 35th percentile. Again, what this is tell us, we're in a good place. However, we want to look at different strategies that we can just bump our percentile up just a little bit more. Going on again to our sixth grade, these are New York State math assessments. Again, the opt-out rates, which this data is based on about 100 students. And, not to go back into the discussion before, but there's a lot of different reasons and impacts that the opt-outs may have on our data. Seventh grade, for our math, what we're seeing, math has our lowest number of opt-outs. What we're seeing is a change with our state assessments with more reading and multi-step problems. So now it's just not a matter of math computations. There's an increase in literacy skills. So that's where you might see a decline. Students need to comprehend what is being asked of them in order to choose the best method to complete the problem. So what we're doing is our math teams have met grade level. We also have done vertical and horizontal, just initial discussions. I know Ryan mentioned it during his presentation. We're having fifth grade math teachers begin to have discussions with sixth grade math teachers about like what's working, what isn't, what standards are we hitting, what ones we have to work a little bit further on. So we're planning on strategically placing those in a timeline and then, revisiting it as the year goes on. For eighth grade, our math assessment, again, opt-outs were high. This data is not including all the students. We have 3 sections of students who did not take this assessment because they are taking Regents algebra. And while it's great that we have a great large number of students who are taking and earning credit for advanced math, this particular data entry is only a reflection of about 40 students. So again, if there were possibly more students taking it, we'd be able to make more educated, data-driven instructional choices for our teachers. Eighth grade algebra.
And just to be clear, if you go back to that one, the accelerated students, if we could find a way to put them in here, probably would all statistically would all be 3s and 4s, so it would change this graph dramatically to parallel ELA. Because when you go to the next slide, you'll see what those students are doing on a Regents exam.
And just before you go there on this graph, and I understand it was only based on 40 students and the higher, are included in this data. Now, but is that consistent from like the spring of 24 to spring of 25, or because if you look at just spring of 24 to spring of 25, that's a scary graph. Mm-hmm. It looks horrible. So is there something that changed from 24 to 25?
That could have just been an anomaly with the data at that point, but for the most part, if you kind of take that out, it has been pretty consistent.
The same students would be missing, right?
Yes.
They're not.
Well, I'm talking about the ones that were performing.
Yes, the three classes of algebra are out of all of these.
Okay.
So it's about 75 students.
So okay, so you're saying it may just be an anomaly?
Well, and that's where next year
We're
will be a
drilling down.
telltale of where it is,
Yeah.
because last year we would have said we're moving the right direction. This year, our jaw drops and goes, what happened?
Right, it's the scary graph.
That's the scary graph.
Okay, our eighth grade algebra Regents exam, just for a background, this was a new and updated algebra exam. There were concerns before its release that there was a lack of materials provided from the state. However, we're super excited that we have 100% mastery, and yet we will continue proficiency. What did I say? Mastery, sorry.
100% proficiency.
Okay, my apologies. So we'll just continue to achieve this through our curriculum alignment as well as our PD on explicit instruction. And we're also pretty fortunate to have one of our teachers who sits on the writing committee in Albany, so she's able to give us some insight as to kind of the changes that might be coming down the pipe. All right, moving on to science. So at Iroquois, students have, in eighth grade, have 3 options for science, general science, earth science, and bio. So our New York State science, this is our general science. This was a new exam as well, brand new exam. It was reading heavy. Similar to our eighth grade math data, we have 3 sections of accelerated students in this graph. Only about 40 students are represented. What's going well is that New York has acknowledged that they need to provide more support, so our science teachers have been going to professional developments put on by BOCEs since the release of this exam. So hopefully we'll get the support we need and be able to give that to the students.
And I just want to say, board, excuse me if I'm looking at my phone, I'm watching different superintendents talking about the weather. Seems to be a January board meeting thing for me since it happened last year, but just for the public. No, it seems to be the schools up by Lake Ontario, not the ones down by us. I'm very sorry. I'll see you tomorrow still currently.
Oh, my kids.
But I'll let you know at
things.
4 o'clock in the morning if it changes. Or maybe by the time you leave here, depending on the weatherman.
That's okay. So our 8th grade earth science, we had one section of earth science this year, and 2 sections of biology, so roughly 75 students out of the 152 who are taking science are accelerated. This graph represents 25 of our students. 2024 was the first year for both the biology and the earth science exam. 2024 also marked the brand new exam, and so for our students to be in the, I don't have it right here, I gotta hover over it, 96% proficiency is passing, which is great. However, you will notice this extreme drop in mastery. That was across the state. I was at a different district at the time, and once this exam was released, the science teachers were ripping their hair out. They're like, I can't even believe this happened, and so they're calling each other, it was a writing exam, it was a reading exam. So this is not condensed to just Iroquois. But it is telling us a lot about, what are our choices moving forward when these exams are starting to become very literacy and reading based. You want to say something? Okay. All right, and then lastly, our bio exams. I haven't flip-flopped down here. Sorry about that. That one's not in here. So again, this is just 2 of our groups. All students, 100% are proficient, but again, you'll see that drop in mastery due to the same reasons as the earth science exam.
So our teachers will be going through a lot of professional development, and department chair goes to OCs and attends those meetings, and there's a lot of conversations around this, and this large decrease across the board and across many districts with a decrease in the mastery level, so that is an area we will look at, and they'll be part of.
All right. Last parts here.
So I know we touched quite a bit on this throughout the presentation, but I'll just kind of recap what areas need attention and where are we going. Continue focus on oral reading fluency. Again, as I mentioned before, that we met with all of the ELA teachers today to really kind of break down all of the questions, looking at how our students did on the multiple choice as well as the constructed response questions. One of our mottos this year is all means all. When we're talking about getting books and 8th graders reading out loud, reading to themselves, we've done a lot with that, with getting books into their hands and different things, but it's what can we do in all content areas to help increase oral reading fluency for our students. And as Mary Jo mentioned before, our students are accurate, not all, but the majority of our students are in middle school, they're not learning to read, they're reading to learn, so that accuracy is there. So we're going to go across the board, what are we doing in all content areas and special areas when it comes down to, as Dr. Dudek shared, paired reading and those different things. So that will be a goal, continued discussion. Renee and I push into teams. We have those conversations. Our team leaders, they share out what's working and what are they doing, and they're following what our goals are within the building. Next is to continue to increase the proficiency of the state assessments. Again, breaking down those assessments. We met with the LA today. We'll be meeting with math and science over the next week and a half, going through all of those assessments, having all of those conversations, as well as really looking at decreasing the amount of students that are opting out of the state assessment. So we shared some of the ideas in the presentations that we do, the information that we sent home. We really try to put it out there of the changes that the state has made. They went from 3 days of testing to 2 days. So they decreased the time, they decreased the amount of questions. So they did make some changes. One of the things that I know we're up against is getting those results back in a timely manner. Would it be great to have them on day 1 of school? Yes. Do we get them during that time? We don't. So that's something that parents have expressed to me. I even asked a parent, I said, would you mind calling the state and sharing your thoughts and your frustrations with that? And they said, absolutely. But we will continue to get this information out and share, here's all of the things that we do, with these assessments, and this is why it's important. So we'll take some, as Jim mentioned, some of those pieces into consideration, and we're willing to try anything, and really celebrating that. So that's where we're going. One of the last pieces, one of the pieces that you'll hear, Angie Hanlon. Angie Hanlon is a consultant that's been working with the district this year, and she's fantastic. We worked as administrators. We had a chance to work for 2 days with her over the summer, really looking at explicit instruction. Over the last 2 years, our teachers have spent time developing and really refining their scope and sequence. All perfect timing for where we are, because what we've been doing since the start of this school year is looking at standards, looking at those standards, designing what we call learning intentions and success criteria. Really answers the question when those students walk in the door, what are we doing today? What do I need to know? And how is this going to affect me? So it's writing learning intentions and success criteria aligned to the standard. They just did all of the work looking at the standards, the different questions, how many questions in each standard were on that state assessment, looking at those questions. One of the things that we're going to be doing is at the end of each unit, the teachers are going through and building that confidence with the students. Say, here's one of the release questions on the state assessment. Let's go through it as a group. Look, you just did this. This is a state assessment, and question, and you nailed it. So we continue to tie all of that together and build the confidence and get it to the students that, so they don't go home and say, well, I don't want to take it, my friend's not taking it, that they can go home and say, you know what, I think it really is important. This is what we learn in class. I'm confident I'm able to take this. So those are the continuous conversations that Renee and I have as we push in, as we do our observations with the teachers, when we have our team meetings and all of those different pieces. So I'm sorry if I'm rambling. But
I just want to jump in one thing quick. I really appreciate, all of the content and material. One thing I would be interested or maybe challenging is driving value out of your current normalized data set that you have. Because if you don't have proficiency, or I will say it this way, if you don't have the right numbers and you consistently haven't had the right numbers, then that's the data set you have, and then starting to drive decisions out of it. It feels like you've spent an awful lot of time, energy, and effort trying to get adoption, and if you can't get adoption, the next thing I would assume is to try to drive the value out of the data that's there, so that way we can collectively make better decisions.
I agree, and so we have done that item analysis. That's where our huge push in literacy has occurred, and so we continue to do that in the others. In a perfect world, what we're saying is, in a perfect world, we still would love to have those opt-outs decrease. That's it.
I would agree, and I think that was an item that was just missing. Kind of what needs attention is driving more value out of the data set you have, and then trying, and instead of having that much effort into it, really doing a more deeper, statistics, analytics view of it.
And that's the importance of the Ames Web data, because that's the individualized data, so that we can compare what we can get out of the Ames Web data with what we can get out of the state data. But that's truly where the push for our literacy movement happened.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all I have. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and presenting that. And thank you, board, for engaging and asking the questions, because this is the only way we can grow and improve.
Ross and Renee, thank you for putting all that data together.
They said you're welcome.
Okay, now we need a board member who will serve on the interview committee for the Alma primary principal position.
Dave, it will be on the 22nd next week, which is a Thursday.
I nominate Todd.
In fairness to Todd, he did just do the assistant superintendent. We can move forward with that one. It's just we're putting it out there.
I'll do it if nobody else is available.
a full day, we will get you the start time. I can't remember if it's 7:30. 7:30 is the start time. 7:30 to 4:30. I plan to 5.
Yeah, it's all day. Okay. Thank you once again for Heather stepping up on that. The next topic we have is, there's other presentations that people have asked about and the board would like to see. We got, one from, ITAC, the Boys and Girls Club, the SRO report, Family Support Center, capital projects, and portal results. These are all different presentations. In other words, which ones do we want to see and kind of when do we want to see them, or it's just, there's different board members have, asked for some of these, and some of the groups have know when they would like to do it, right, Doug?
Yeah, and so if we kind of look at each one of them, like the capital project, really we're in a phase right now where it's been approved by the board, so the architects are designing it. Really, there won't be any significant change or anything to discuss for a couple months. In this board meeting, you'll be looking at the construction manager, which all they do is manage the project. They don't do any construction, even though they're called construction manager. They just oversee the work that's being done. The architect who's doing the work, and a finance person who makes sure we hit the maximum amount of aid to get the bonding in and everything is right. There's other decisions from last board meeting. We talked about how we were going to bid out for the work, or whether we're going to go off of like state bids already, ones that were done. And so that decision's not even being discussed tonight. That won't be for a couple months until the architect is done. And actually, we can't even make a choice on that until after SED approves it. And I think it takes about 6 months to go through SED. So we're talking 8 months. So for capital project, I don't think there's any, in short, I don't think there's any big rush to get that one in right away, because we won't be reporting too much. The SROs coming in, I know they've worked, vaping is a problem here, problem everywhere, so they're working on new programs for students that are doing that. They have different ideas. I don't want to steal any of their thunder. I think that would be a good one to get in. And I look at the schedule of what we have here. We have in pretty much from now till May, John will be presenting the budget. February, Mary Jo will be presenting data, and special ed will be presenting what they have to. March, I think, might be a great time to do it, because we have the athletic director coming in and talk about voluntary coaching and state regulations.
Doug,
that doesn't, yep.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have the counseling on there?
That's with Chris Hershey there for February.
In with special ed?
Yes.
Okay. Because normally the department chair.
Yes,
okay.
Yep, so they would have to get them in there.
Thank
yep.
you.
So with that, I think, back to the SROs where I was, would that be a good month to get them in sooner? Because it is a problem we're facing. Yes. So March, I will let Officer Barry know. Then you have Family Support Center. You wanted an update on that, and ITAC came to ask about doing that. So if we have 2 in March, April, we have, where is he? They're out there. Pete, we were talking about the new graduation requirements, and knowing that the state might not have made too many changes or given a lot of information on that. I think that April would be a good month either to have Family Support Center for an update and ITAC, or both of them. That might be good.
And I thought Carrie was going to come in and talk to us at some point.
Yeah, that's March.
That's already scheduled. These are additional ones.
These are additional ones.
These are, yeah, sorry,
Okay.
we're not replacing any. I should have been clear. We're adding 2.
Okay. So March, Carrie's going to come in.
March would be Carrie and Barry.
Okay.
Not you, the officer. So would you want to add to the new graduation requirements, ITAC, Family Support Center update, or both?
Both, yeah.
Both? Okay. Oh, Boys and Girls Club, too. So let's see, that was April. And then May, we're talking about strategic plan in May. Would you want then to have the Boys and Girls Club to come in and Were they just coming and give an update of what's going on with the boys? Yeah, an update from the boys.
What
and
else is
girls
going on in May?
Strategic plan.
So,
And John would be giving, we'd be having our public hearing
For the
on,
budget.
the budget too.
Would
So
it-
that could be a full one.
would it make, that May's, because that's going to be, okay.
That's
that
going to be a
makes-
full.
Okay, fine.
So you want it in May, or, you could do June too for Boys and Girls Club.
I think we could do it in June, because the budget's a big deal.
June?
Yeah.
Okay. We have them all in then. Thank you. We have to get the word out. Oh, did you want to do anything with portal results? Not yet, not yet.
Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Okay, super. First thing, response from last month, public comments. We did have a lot of individuals come in and talk passionately about a personnel issue. Unfortunately, the district doesn't have the same liberty to talk about personnel issues, so we didn't get back. There is an adjustment, if you'll notice when we get down to the agenda, on a personnel issue that was in the same area that the individuals came and spoke. That was the only group that came in and spoke. So the next thing would be John with his budget presentation. John is sick, so if he starts to struggle with his voice, he informed me, 2 minutes ago that I will have to jump in.
He is ready to go if needed. We'll see.
But-
So 26, 27 budget, we're at the same point we are every year at this time, at least where we've been the last 2-3 years, where we don't have a lot of information. I'll go through kind of quickly. The vision has not changed. Mission has not changed. The considerations that we have in the budget process, nothing really changed here. Again, the fourth one being future-focused, looking many years down the road, not just looking at next year, but 5 years down the road and things that could impact us. Agenda tonight, budget philosophy, state financial update, vote, and tax rate history, and legislative updates.
And I'll give John's voice a little break here. I like the word here about not changing, because I think that's kind of a theme from the state. They're not changing too much, even though we lobby and try it. Trying to change timelines, trying to get more money. It's kind of tough. I'm glad a lot of people are here, because reaching out to the state, asking them to do things differently would be very advantageous to not only us, but a lot of other school districts. They'll talk about hold harmless, and how many schools are getting locked into that. That basically means you don't get any more money, even though the cost of everything is going up. There you go, Gal.
Okay, thank you. Our budget philosophy, the concerns that we have is the state aid and tax cap does not support higher costs driven by inflation. We'll show a slide that kind of summarizes that in a minute. New York State mandates, they can be instructional mandates, they can be electric bus mandates, things like that have real cost impact on a district that we have to keep in mind. And the philosophy of distribution of straight aid and the impact of this Rockefeller Institute study that was supposed to change things. We don't really see things changing right now, but the study was done. I don't think they're going to use it anytime soon.
Only costs $1 million.
Yeah. So here's that history of CPI on the bottom, where it's been. We know CPI has been very high in the last number of years, but you can see that our major 78% of our revenue comes from two sources, foundation aid and tax levy, and we can see that that has not kept up with the CPI increases that we've seen. So that's a very clear indication that we've been behind for a number of years, cost-wise, and compared to revenues coming in that we really can't control. Tax levy is kind of dictated by the tax cap calculation, so there's not much we can do with that. It's the number that we get from the calculation. We don't change it. State aid, like Doug said, hold harmless, meaning that if the formula is saying that you should be going down in foundation aid, hold harmless says that you'll at least get the aid that you received last year, and you won't get a deduction. So when 5 years ago, we were hold harmless then, and there were probably 50, 60 districts. There's more and more every year that are on that save harmless that are getting no increase scheduled. So that's good. That means there's more voices being out there, of a lot more districts that are angry about that and trying to get an increase. So that's kind of helps our cause. There's a budget, the executive budget proposal is supposed to be scheduled for next Tuesday, the 20th. But if we look at the last couple of years, typically she does not say very much about education at that presentation. So usually a couple days after that presentation, she'll release some budget sheets. They typically will show no increase in our foundation aid, and then we wait months for negotiation to happen at the state level, and hopefully we get 2 or 3% at the end of the day. It looks like we're on course to do that same thing again this year. Important thing to note, if you look at our aid reports when they do come out, if you happen to see them, realize that our state aid building aid will be dropping by $470,000. That's planned. We knew that. It's one debt bond issue that's coming to an end. So the matching payments that we made for that bond are also going to drop off. So it's kind of a net zero effect. But just be aware that we do know that that's here. And if you see that on our report, we're very aware of it.
And to be transparent to everyone about when the governor makes their presentation, they like to go out there and say, oh, here's the percentage that education is going up for, or revenue is going up for schools, and they'd like to throw a big number on it. That number does not mean it's coming to public schools. That number includes SUNY schools, and you look how they've paid for tuition for kids and how that's gone up. It's like UPK programs that schools can't even use or spend money on, that money goes in there. So please don't believe that percent is identical to what would happen to a school district. They are two very different things, because when she presents, it's the big pot, and then it's how they divvy up the pot, and they divvy up all the new stuff to all these people, and back here you don't get anything new.
A couple changes to state aid, BOCES salaries, which are moved up a little bit, where there's more salary being subject to aid, which used to be the first $30,000 of a person's salary at BOCES that we get aid on. So that means we're going to get a little more BOCES aid next year, a little bit. We don't know the real impact yet. But at a state level, they're saying that's a $42 million increase because of that change. So hopefully we'll see something from that. Look at our history of vote results last year. We were at 75% approval rate from the public, so we obviously thank them for that. And if we look at the last 7-8 years, we see a very consistent level of approval, so that's been great too. Reminder, tax rates are set through 3 factors. The one we have control over, we set the tax levy amount, and that's very clear. How that's rolled out and becomes we have 6 towns in our district, how that rate's determined also falls on assessments and how those assessments are set. And also equalization rate, which is set by the state, which is that, a rate that's applied to get all districts on the same playing field and make them all full value. When we look at our history of tax rate per thousand, and this is looking at the equalized full value, we actually see that rate coming down. And it makes sense because property values have gone up so much in the last 3-4 years. There's a lot more property value to spread our levy across. So we're seeing that equalized rate actually decreasing and really flattening out now in the last couple of years. Excuse me. The Moody's rating is kind of a rating of our investment grade and our debt service. We're at AA2. I just want to bring this up. That just came out in December that we're in AA2. That's a very high grade. It's an investment grade, a good rating for us. And that means we're going to get a very good interest rate when we do bonds. So that's very helpful. I don't see us ever going better than this because they know that our revenues are controlled by the state. We don't have a lot of control over revenues coming in. So AA2 is pretty good, and we'll probably be at that rate for a while. Just a reminder that our fiscal stress monitoring system that is in place, we have a score of 0, which is a good score. It means we have no issues with our financials. We have no issues with our environmentals, meaning like, enrollment changes, property value changes. We're in a good spot there, and there's no fiscal stress or environmental stress on our district. Legislative updates. A couple things that happened recently. There was a change that allowed Board of Educations to meet on any date before the Monday after July 20th. It just gives us more time to have that reorganization meeting every year. They had a little more time. So you got 15 days in July. I'm sorry, 20 days in July where it used to be 15. Absentee ballots, I think they're reeling back in some of the, they allowed a lot of absentee ballots when COVID came out, and they kind of opened that up and made it very easy to do. I think they're pulling back on a little of that now they want valid reasons for obtaining an absentee ballot. So it looks like they're pulling some of that back and trying to get more people out to vote and not just do absentee ballots. There's a disaster relief law signed into place that just says that if something happens on a vote date, maybe it's, and typically of course our budgets are done in May, so there's not many natural disasters in May. But if you do a capital project in December, But if you do a capital project in December, but if you do a capital project in December and there's some kind of storm or problem and you only get 8% or less of your voters coming out, it gives you the ability to re-vote and try again. So that's a new change that's put in as well. So next steps, we're going to look at our tax cap calculation. We still are looking for some information from that from the state. Review budget projections with departments and administrators. Come up with our reserve plan. Look at our impact of retirements. We'll be hearing from what teachers are going to retire in February, typically. We'll look at our enrollment changes, see if anything needs to be changed at the building level. Monitor our state aid, and review our BOCES projected contracts, where we look at all the different items that we purchase in BOCES, and we sit down with technology and we go through every line, and making sure we're still using the items that we purchase, and making sure we still want to carry those forward next year. So that'll be done soon as well. Contact for Kathy Hochul, if you'd like to contact her. We always include, we have our two legislators, Senator Galvin, Assemblyman DiPietro. We have the contact information for them as well. And at the February 4th meeting, we'll have more information to present that time, financial information. Any questions at this point? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving into recognitions, Mary Jo?
Yes.
You're retiring. Thank you so much for all your years of service and everything you've done for the district over the numerous times being here. More importantly, thank you for coming back in retirement to present to the board about how our district compares to other districts next month, which will be a very short turnaround, February 4th.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone in the district, from all the board members from 2011 to the present, and also a special thanks to Dawn and if we can remember, Cindy and Nora, who supported us, and also to Doug, who taught me so much and continues to lead this district in a really wonderful way. You guys are going to be really lucky to keep him, because we have a long way to go, but we're on the right track.
Well, it was only with your help, so thank you.
Mary Jo? Thank you, Mary Jo.
Thank you.
Moving on to athletics, right now, congratulations to the Iroquois boys ice hockey coach Ty for being named December Coach of the Month by the Buffalo Sabres. He was recognized on the 10th at the Sabres game against Anaheim Ducks. The boys varsity basketball player Justice surpassed his brother Ty in career points scored, is now the all-time leader of the boys basketball at Iroquois. Music department, last month, sing-alongs, middle school band concert, middle school chorus concert, II chorus, band concerts, grades 5 through 12 orchestra concerts. Honestly, I love going to these because they really start the holiday off well, hearing how our students do in these performances. I was only, with the elementary sing-alongs, it was only I was able to make Marilla this year, but they do a fabulous job, so congratulations to our students and all their instructors and in that area. Holly Hanging happened again, so it's always beautiful to see all the kids come up and enjoy as their first entrance into the high school from the younger grades. And you already presented Alice in Wonderland, January 30 and 31st. I would highly suggest attending it. It's a cold, dark winter, and coming and watching one of these shows is fabulous. Always enjoy it. Technology department, they already talked about it, so I won't say it again, but thank you to Jacqueline and Kayla for their leadership with the 7th grade students, and you can see all back there, it started way back in October. I'm repeating what the students said, so I will stop. But Key Bank Center, January 30th, I hope we get a lot there, and actually I hope to win. And we have a couple people for tenure, which when we get to discussion there, Dave will talk about those, which will be just after 1 second, so I'll wait for him. but I know someone's in the audience.
Here, we're gonna move on to, recognition of guests. Do we have any recognition, do you have any guests? I just want to say, I don't know, go off script here a little bit and make Doug nervous. I just want to say, we always say in the beginning of the meeting that, well, we won't engage with the public, we are listening. And I think that the board and everyone on this table truly means that, and we do reflect and we do appreciate the comment for the public. And this is something I don't usually do, but I wanted to also say this. At last month's board meeting, there was being as generic as they can, a particular young woman who I believe was someone's granddaughter, who I just want to commend her. She did an amazing job speaking to us, and to me personally, it was impactful. I think it was well done. So that's a remarkable young person out there. And I say that because all of us around this table are here for the students and the young people, regardless of what district they are not part of. When you see someone do a good job, I just want to recognize it. So thank you. Flipping the page. Moving on to discussion of agenda items 11.01 through 18.14. In the discussion, there was a board member that came with me for a particular question on some agenda items. It was 18.03 for 18.05, and just to provide clarification, and Doug or John, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, with the building, the project manager, the finance person, and the architect. All we're doing is basically we're looking to hire our head coach, our general manager, and maybe the offense coordinator. We're not deciding anything. We're not, exactly hiring any true construction people. And there's also a question on the bidding process. What we said, and where we still are, is we said last board meeting that we want the district to explore the two different road paths to bid. And one was, a public bid or a state bid. We're not deciding which way we're going. We're just looking, and that allows us to choose what will be best for the district, the taxpayers, the students. I just want to provide that clarification. And if I'm wrong, Doug or John, please chime in. If there's any other questions, someone please
No, I
ask.
think you have it right, and actually, that team is the one that helps us with that decision. The team, the architect, the construction manager, are the ones that advise which path to go, depending on price point, to get the most value for the taxpayer. So we're not making that decision, and we won't be making that decision for a few months, minimally. And that's based on the meeting we had Monday? Yesterday. Sorry, I've had a lot of meetings the last 3 days, so. We will when we get to it, yeah, when we get to the point. So right now, you're looking at it, and it really comes down to who can do the work more effectively at a better price. Who can stretch the dollar the farthest way, yeah.
Who gives us that presentation of information that we need?
That would come from John, but he could invite in campus construction, the construction manager, and the architect to assist them with it too. And I would think our buildings and grounds gentleman might be there too, because that's who they have to eventually take over all the work that is done.
It seems, there's two different community members, and it's like one's on each side of our options. Is there a way for them to come in and give us a little bit of an education, since we have to be
That is something that we are exploring right now with this team, where we've met with both people, but those two people are not the two options you have. They are both on the same option, and the other option is bidding. So whether either one presented, one of them might do a better job than the other one, but that's where we go to the professionals for advice, because we're not construction experts. So the advice is, do we go out to bid, where basically you say, here's the work we want done, give us a number, or is it where they're working hand in hand in making sure the feasibility, the construction ability is to do it? And right now, if I had to make a choice right now between the two, although I'm much more comfortable with the bidding because I've done that for years, I think the other one, where these two are, for this project, I think for part of the project is a better path to go. For the roofing, I don't think it is, but for the HVAC system, if I had to make a decision today, that's where I would be, but we're not at that point, and that's part of what the meeting was with the architect, construction manager, and so forth, was to say, well, when do we have to make that decision by, so we have as much information possible to make that decision.
No, I agree. It seems like that option is the better of the two, and
Yeah.
I would just like to understand it more personally.
Yeah.
So that's-
We could get more information on that, but again, that's not, there's no, in my opinion, there's no rush on it, because even by law, and we can't even award anything until the state approves the project, and then you can do a letter of intent, but the letter of intent says, in essence, yeah, I agree to go with you unless I change my mind.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't taking anything off the table.
No, nothing is off the table.
So, yeah,
with these.
those are really valid questions and points. It's just not, and we will need to ask those questions. We're just not there yet.
But on 1803 through 1805, it says recommending the award of a construction manager. Like you just said that we can't award.
He doesn't know, the construction manager is basically head coach, clerk of the works.
Okay.
They don't do any, they don't pick up a hammer or a saw. They walk around and say to the construction company, so of those, the people you get off the bid or the other two that were over here, they walk around and make sure they're doing what they say they would do. They have nothing to do with those two.
Okay. It just seems there's a lot of conversation that still needs to be had, and here we're approving 3 items that could influence the planning part of the project, so I'm just,
The architect is actually, we're approving them for the project. It's the architect of the district that you
Yeah.
already approved
Gordon
at the
Jones,
district
yeah.
planning conference.
Yeah.
Campus construction, you're approving officially, but they're the ones that have actually been paralleling the architect. They're the ones who actually represent you as a board, just like an internal auditor. So you don't look at it all the audits. They're the ones that are making sure the architect, and they're the experts that help guide us down that path. And the finance people is the one for the bonding that we get our max cost allowance from. I mean, without them, I guess, if we weren't getting the construction manager, we'd have to be hiring a couple people to do that work.
okay, and I didn't know, is that part of the bidding process on who the
Those,
overall manager?
those are not, because those are professional services, so that's where we look and interview people and talk to different people. Traditionally, we've used Campus majority here, but we've also used Turner Construction, depending on the conversations and what project and what skill set they've had. We've also looked at, I want to say Buffalo, I can't think of the second part of their name. Again, what do they have for their services depending on the project?
Is that something we review? How often do we review that? 'Cause I just
Every
remember
project.
Every year, we look. At-
Every project, because a project might go 3 or 4 years, or 2 years. So, yeah, every time there's a project, we look at that. Architect, we appoint that annually, so we can look at it annually, have different interviews come in. We've done that once in my career here, of looking at a different architect, ended up with the same one. And they just get so much history with the district, the blueprints and everything. It's hard to switch, but we always do a price comparison. And if we're not getting a good value for our dollar, or their price is out of line, that's where we have a discussion before any contract is priced out. Did you okay, John?
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. But before we move on to that, I want to say, is there anything that Dave, or any recognitions, or?
I do. One is right in the audience right now, Emily Voide. She's on our agenda tonight. She's a social worker up in the high school, and she's on there for a 10-year appointment. So you can wave to everybody. So there they are. So congratulations. Also welcoming Marilyn Bykowski. She's joining us as a bus driver. Kelly Jean Helbling, who's joining us as a nurse. And then Lisa Murata, who's joining us as a senior clerk typist here at Iroquois. So welcoming them as well.
Okay, the basic purpose of the consent agenda is to act upon routine manners in expeditious manner. Items placed in the consent agenda are determined by the board president and vice president in cooperation with the superintendent, and are those which are considered common to the operation of the district and normally require no special board discussion or debate. Board members have the ability and the responsibility of reviewing the consent agenda ahead of time. A board member may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed and inserted at an appropriate place on the regular agenda. The president will present the initial motion, followed by a request for a second motion. Going on to 10.02, request to withdraw modifying agenda item. I do have one. It is 13.03, And we'd like to withdraw that and replace it with the superintendent recommends to accept the retirement resignation of Thomas Wood from his position as track coach effectively at the end of the date, December 8th, 2025, to accept the position of head track and field consultant for indoor, outdoor track, and field and cross country. So I would, presenting the motion to make that change. Do I have a second? Second by Todd. All in favor? So it shows the board is unanimous in favor. Okay. So we just did that one. Yes, do we have any items we want to add? I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so I'm making the motion to approve the consent agenda items 11.01 through 18.14. Can I have the second? Second by Heather Becker. All in favor? Shows unanimous. Everyone's in favor. The consent agenda carries. I'm going to flip some pages here. Okay. Do we have any guests on any topic? Okay. Is there a need for an executive session? Okay. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second? Second by Bob. All in favor? Shows unanimous. All in favor, Dawn. We are adjourned at 8:29.